You're just doing the audio, eh?
Yes.
Because if you get the video, it's going to be very boring, you know? Well, it's okay. I mean, do what you want. So, okay, maybe I can give you a light show here. Hello, hello everybody. Hello. Hi Connor. Welcome back to Ottawa.
Thanks.
So, well, the whole city of Ottawa was in an uproar. Years previous to this, the mayor had promised that there would be a brand new LRT and it would run from one end of the city to the other, and it would take all the stinky buses off the road, and it would be fast and quiet and smooth, and it would be the best in the whole world, certainly the best in Canada. Well, the mayor was just so thrilled with his plan. He talked it up to everybody he met. And then when he got to city council, he talked all the councillors into saying that yes, it was the best idea they'd ever heard, and they would go ahead and back him. Well, they started looking at the plans where it would go. Of course, they wanted to make sure it went to the right places, and they had the right number of stations, and the stations were the right places, and everybody would use it. Well, they got underway. The first time the mayor put the proposal forward, he said, "This LRT is going to cost $600 million. And everybody went, "Oh, $600 million. Well, there was an engineer in the back and he didn't see much. He sort of went, I wonder. So after the meeting, he went up to the mayor and said, "Mr. Mayor, can I please have a look at your plans?" And the mayor said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I'm an engineer and I'd really like to see exactly how this is." Well, the mayor was very proud of his LRT. And he turned around and he said, "Here, Mr. Engineer, you can have all the plans and you can look at them upside down and backwards and forwards." Well, little did the mayor know that not only was he an engineer, but he was a group of people that had accountants in them and estimators. The job of an estimator is sit down and look at plans that people are having for a building or a road or a tunnel or whatever, and sort of figure, how much steel is needed? How much concrete? How many men will it take? When will they start? When they stop? And all the other things that go into it. Well, he looked at it and he figured up and he figured down and they added figures and they subtracted figures and they looked at it first. Well, the figure that they got over there was nowhere like 600 million. Well, the mayor didn't know about this, but the engineer said, "Well, boys, we'd better do this again because our figures are so far off what the mayor said, we probably made a mistake." Well, they looked and they figured and they hummed and they did this and they that, and they ran everything through their calculators and through their computers, and the answer came out the same. Well, the engineer was very worried about what would he tell the mayor, and he sort of walked around paced around his office round and round in a circle with his hands behind his back thinking, I've got to figure out a way to tell the mayor this, but I don't know when. And then his office assistant said, "Oh, look, he's going to be down at the local museum and he's unveiling a plaque. You could go down there and tell him." And the engineer said, "Okay, but you better come along with me because I don't know what his reaction's going to be." Well, I went down and sure enough, there was the mayor. And the mayor was standing up in front of a crowd and he was raving and smiling, telling everybody what a wonderful mayor he was and what a wonderful museum they had. But it was nothing compared to the LRT that way they would get. Well, right after that, when the mayor got down off his podium, the engineer went and said, Mr. Mayor. And the mayor said, "Mr. Engineer, oh, I see you're bringing your plans back." "Yes." "Well, what do you think?" "Well, I think it's a pretty good plan. I'd change a few things in it, but overall I think it's pretty good. Well, what else have you got to say for yourself, Mr. Engineer?" "Well, I hate to break the bad news, but the way we figure it, and when we've looked at all the things we want to do, and putting in all the 13 stations, and having all the artwork, and having all the modern things, and having the fancy statues, and and all the landscaping and all the fancy computers and everything, we came to a different figure. Oh, you did? Well, the mayor was so pleased with his own figures, he thought, oh, I know it's going to be way less than 600 million. He said, well, Mr. Mayor, I think you should sit down here. And the engineer's assistant ran over and got a chair and put it right behind the knees of the mayor, and went and got a glass of water. And the mayor said, oh, what's all this? And the engineer said, Mr. Mayor, we figure that LRT, that beautiful LRT that you want to build, is going to cost $2.1 billion. What? Said the mayor, and he was so flabbergasted that he collapsed right into the chair. His mouth was open and he was wondering, I didn't hear right. And quickly the engineer's assistant went over and gave the mayor a glass of water, and the mayor went, glug, 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 glug. And he said, how did you come up with such a ridiculous figure? Well, these are all things that I did. Why don't you take it back to your planning staff and see if they would do things differently? I certainly will, said the mayor. And he went off in a huff, thinking, 2.1 billion, how are we ever going to pay for that? Well, he went back to the office, and he called in all his estimators and all the people, and they took a look at it, and they said, oh, we made a whole bunch of mistakes, Mr. Mayor. We didn't look at all the things he was looking at. Well, when we figure out what it's going to cost with all the things that he's noticed, yes, it's going to cost 2.1 billion. Well, by this time the mayor was in a frenzy, and he was walking around in circles. And of course the engineer went back and he hid in his house, closed the door, pulled out the lights, and peeked out, and he wondered if the mayor was telling the police to go and cart him off to jail because he'd made such a terrible mistake and he upset the mayor so much. Well, the mayor said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then he got all his councillors together, and the councillors said, well, Mr. Mayor, you can't go back. You've been selling this project now for a year. You've been telling everybody it's the best in Canada. It's the best in North America. It's the best in the whole wide world. Well, you can't just turn around and say, duh, I made a mistake, duh. Everybody will think you're not Mayor Jim Watson. They'll think you're Mayor Homer Simpson. And everybody laughed. And the mayor got furious and looked at everybody and stopped growling right away. Well, and one of the councillors, the junior councillor, said, well, tell you what, we'll just tell everybody how much it costs and put a brave face on it and sell it even more, and we'll get fancy promotional videos, and we'll tell everybody, well, it's time Ottawa was a big city, and this is a big city project, and it's got a big city bill, but when we're finished, we're going to have a big city LRT system that everybody in the whole world will think, they did it right in Ottawa. Well, he wasn't sure, but he thought he'd do that. So the next election that came along, that's exactly what he did. He went and he sold it, and he sold it in the streets, and he sold it in the pubs. He'd get up on the counter in the pub, and he'd say, my good friends and fellow citizens of Ottawa, I'm here to tell you about the wonderful LRT you're going to have. And some people said, boo hiss, and others said, ray. But more people said, ray, than boo hiss. Well, the day the election came, and the mayor was worried. He was pacing up and down in his office again, and he was drinking glass after glass of water, and he was sitting down, and he was standing up, and he was looking at the window, and he had his hands behind his back, and he was pulling his hair, and he was sitting down and saying, oh no, well, it'd be okay. Well, the votes started coming in, and first of all, they went this way, and then they went that way, and then they went the other way, yeah, they went the other way, and back and forth, and finally, at the very end of the night, when the very last vote was counted, the mayor had won. Whew. He breathed a big sigh of relief. Well, he turned around and said, okay, the people who said they want to spend the money, we will tax them, they will pay and pay and pay, and I'll go down as a very famous mayor who built the LRT. Well, the people didn't mind paying for the LRT because they thought, we'll be getting rid of those stinky old buses. It'll be so much quicker. It'll be smooth and quiet. It's electric and doesn't make any noise, and it just goes whoosh from one side of the city to the other, and it goes whoosh back to the other side, and then it gets onto the whole line and goes shh, the whole line, and goes whoosh back down. And everybody was thinking, we can hardly wait. Well, they started building First of all, they put up big piles of earth and they pounded the earth nice and hard so it could take a roadbed. Then they put the roadbed on it. Then they put the rails on it. Then they started building all the stations, 13 of them. And they were very nice and they all had the same kind of design. And they all had different art in it because the mayor said, we're going to do things better than in Toronto. Toronto, you go down and you look at the subway there, why, it looks like you're in the world's biggest bathroom. All those yellow tiles, why, you might as well just stand in the corner and have yourself a good pee. And that's what people are doing down there. And whew, that's their mistake. Nobody's going to be peeing in ours. We have, in every station, there's this type of, there's washrooms for the disabled, washrooms for women, washrooms for little kids, washrooms for men, washrooms for non-binary, gendered, LGBTRQMNX. We've got washrooms coming out the yin-yang. Everybody's going to be so happy. Well, they went and they were working very hard in building all the stations. And the mayor said, we've got to get trains and we've got to get cars. So they went and had a competition from people all over the world. And they awarded it to a French company called Alstom, A-L-S-T-R-O-M. Well, the French said, this will be a snap. We will come over here and we will show these Canucks how to build an LRT. It will be famous and we will make so much money. Ooh la la, $2.1 billion. That will buy me an awful lot of ice cream. Well, they sent over their engineers and their engineers spent all their time with toothpicks feeling how superior they were and saying, hey, hello, and comment ça va, and maudit tabarnak. They learned that from the guys in Quebec, who, because they never heard of maudit tabarnak, but when they heard the Quebec guys saying, they said, hey, that's really cool. What does it mean? Well, when they heard about it, they all had a good laugh. They said, in France, when we swear, we call people names. We don't talk about religious things, but that's okay. Well, these guys thought they had it made in the shade, and they were pretty slack. Well, when the trains were put together, and they got them on the track, horror. The doors didn't close. The computers didn't work. The bells didn't ring. Oh no, and not only that, they once went off the track. Well, the end of the contract came and went, and the trains still weren't ready. And people building the stations kept building the stations a little better, and they polished this, and they put in a few more trees, and they changed this around, and they made sure that everything was just lined up. Meanwhile, they were trying to build 34 trains at a special facility that they'd made in Ottawa. Well, they worked on it. They passed. They said, for sure we won't have it by Confederation Day, we'll have it by Halloween. Well, Halloween came and went, no train. Oh no, for sure we're going to have it Christmas time. Christmas time came and went. Oh no. And then they said, we better give ourselves more time because it wasn't enough. Well, it's going to be ready in the spring. Well, the spring come and went. It still wasn't there. And everybody said, what's going on? And they said, well, we're going to wait a really long time before it's ready. And they said, we're going to wait until next spring. They said, what, 9 months? Yes. Well, they kept working on the trains. They couldn't really get them. Some of them were working. Some of them were working fine. But some of them, nah, no good at all. Well, finally, after the 4th time when they missed their deadline, the mayor got on the phone to the head of Alstom. And he just tore him a new one. He just screamed and yelled and pounded the phone on the table and yelled some more. And then he peed all over the phone. He was so frustrated. And the French guy at the other end, all he could hear is gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. And he'd say, hey, hello, what are you telling me? Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. He didn't know that he was getting pissed at. He said, well, I've been so pissed off at you guys for not having our trains ready. When will it be ready? Well, oh Lord, the French president of the company, he was in a sweat. He was in a tizzy. He knew there were a lot of big jobs coming. If they didn't get this right, they wouldn't have a chance of getting the other jobs, and they'd lose so much money. Well, they thought they could cut corners and be so superior, and it didn't work. So he hopped on a plane and came over, and he went into the station, and he looked at his engineers and he said, "You're fired, you're fired, you're fired." And he brought in a whole new team. And the whole new team, they were young and excited and very eager, and they worked day and night, and they finally got the trains ready. Well, the mayor was so relieved, but he wanted to have a big unveiling. So he didn't tell anybody the trains were ready. He said, "You can't tell anybody. It's got to be a surprise. We've got to get them all on the track, and we're going to have a big announcement, and we're going to pull the switch, and all 34 trains are going to be running at the same time." Well, that's exactly what he did. When Canada Day came, he had a big, huge crowd of people on front of Parliament Hill, and he said into the microphone, "Ladies and gentlemen, I, your famous mayor, am willing and happy and delighted to tell you that we now have our new LRT, and by pushing this button, I will have all 34 trains run at once." Well, he pushed the button, and lo and behold, right across the city from one end to the other, to east to west and south to north, the trains started rolling, silently whispering. They went from the east to the west. They went from the west to the east. They went from the north to the south. They went from the south to the north. And at the end of the day, everybody in Ottawa thought, "This is great. We have our own LRT." And they had a big contest for all the children to give names to all the 34 trains, because one of the little children next to the mayor said, "Why are we just giving them numbers? I watched Thomas the Tank Engine, and every engine there has a name." Yes. Well, what a great idea. So he announced the very next day that they were going to have a contest for all the children to figure out names for all the trains. And in the meantime, the people were very happy, and the trains started running, and they were on time, and there was never any more problems with them. That's the end of the story.
Excellent.